We talked last week on seeking. We're in the book of Psalms, Psalms 34. And as we've been going through it, it's taken me a lot longer than I expected. But there's so much power in the book of Psalms. We've learned a lot about Psalms and what it is. And we come to this Psalm in 34 that was written by David at a very difficult time. And as we've gone through it, we've gone through the attitude of praises through the first 4 verses. And then as we get to verse 4, which we talked about and highlighted last week, we talked about how David speaks about seeking after God. And as we seek after him, he hears us. And he delivers us from our fears. That's a promise. I was reading in my Bible study book this week. It was talking about, no, actually it wasn't. It was actually a different book I was reading. But it talked about how God's character, he loves to speak because he creates things out of what he speaks and what he says. And so often, like as Christians, this fan's blowing everything around, we get to the place where we think, well, God spoke the word. He spoke the worlds into existence. He did all this speaking, but once revelation was done, he quit speaking. That is not so. He is speaking today. He is speaking over us. Isn't that powerful? The word says he sings over us. He rejoices over us. And that's God's character. So as we look into the word and we see him say, seek after me. And as David talks about seeking, or I sought him, and he talks about what happens when he does that. He says that he heard me. He heard me. He didn't ignore me. He listens to his children's voice. And then even after he says that, he says, and he's delivered me from my fears. He has ministered to me in a way that is only from him. And we're so grateful for that. And as we get to this next verse that I wanted to talk about, and I thought I was going to fly through a bunch of them today, but I don't think I'm going to, because as I just really spent some time, I really just kind of felt like this is powerful. It says that they looked to him and they were radiant, and their faces were not ashamed. That's God right there in his all in all, how he loves for us to set our gaze upon him, to look to him, to seek after him, and to take our eyes off of this world and to place them on him. There's such power in that. And when we do that, the word says there's a blessing that comes from him. It says that we are radiant. We've all heard how when Moses went up to the mount and he spent time with the Lord and he came back down, his face shone. It was bright. They actually had to veil him because the glory of the Lord was emanating from him. And I believe that for us today. As we sit in prayer, as we sit in meditation, we think about him. And we look to him in our lives in every area. Every area of our lives, if it's in our family, if it's in our work, if it's in our finances, if it's in our walk with him, and we seek him and we face him and look and set our eyes upon him, he will bring radiance out of us. He will make you radiant children. Luke 11:34 says, the lamp of the body is the eye. Therefore, when your eye is good, your whole body is also full of light. But when your eye is bad, your body is also full of darkness. He says, therefore, take heed that the light which is in you is not darkness. Jesus is addressing us here, and he's not addressing physical sight. He's not saying, put a picture of Jesus on the wall and just sit in front of it all day and stare at that picture. And don't take your eyes off of it. He's not speaking in that sense. He's saying, set your spiritual vision on me. Look to me. Let your eyes behold and value what I value. Seek what I have for you. Let your inward man take its gaze off of our own self and our own circumstances and our own failures, which God says does not define you, and put them on me, the one that does define you, the one that declares you as holy. We praise him for that. And what does that mean? That means that in a tangible sense, where are we spending our time? Where are we setting our thoughts throughout the day? Are we setting them on what's going on around us? Our distractions? Because the world is very distracting, isn't it? I find that day to day how distracting the world is and how things seem to sideswipe me. And it feels like it sweeps me off my feet. But then I hear this still small voice kind of just speaking into my ear saying, "My child, come to me. Rest in my arms. Rest in me. Rest in my love. Put your trust in me." Even though you might not understand the circumstances that surround us, because in a lot of ways we can't. But God doesn't call us to understand. He calls us to trust. He said, 2 Corinthians says, we don't walk in sight, we walk in faith. We believe in him. So is our eyes on the temporal pleasures of this world? Are we self-seeking? I can catch myself in that. If I'm being real with you guys, I can catch myself in that. All too often, because the flesh just tries to draw us away from serving God, serving Christ, and serve ourselves. And I catch myself in that very often. Is worldly and self-seeking. But God says there's a better way. Place your eyes, place your gaze, place your heart in believing on the eternal, where your soul rests, on the heavenly, and seek Christ, because that reward far outweighs anything the world has to offer. I loved as we were singing As the Deer. Oh, prayer time. Okay. I'm going to wrap this up and go to prayer. So, thank you, Angel. So, see, I told you, I'm still new at this, so please forgive me. There's got to be grace. But I'm going to wrap this up and go to prayer real quick, and then we'll come back to this thought. But we need to set our hearts. Let God just ignite our hearts with passion for him. Because as we come to him, God doesn't call us to seek after something that cannot be found. That wouldn't be his character. God isn't a liar. The word of God is clear. He is truth, and he is life. And as we seek after him, he will allow us to find him in all areas of our lives. And that's an amazing thing.